Hello, welcome guys. So today I'm going to discuss about design methodology. Now, design methodology is a generic term, but the context is sort of the product design methodology. Now, some of you may have heard the term. So design methodology, as I was talking to you, it's some of you may have heard the term. So it's basically the methodologies which are used to design products. Now again, for this discussion, I would restrict the products to the software products, or basically the software. Now, which encompasses, it could be a software like, let's say, Microsoft Office, or it could be a product which is based on website type, like, let's say, Salesforce, or maybe a social networking site like Facebook. So they're typically, both are software products. One is sort of a more of an install on the client, meaning install on your PC. Another was more web-based. Now, even though in the web-based software there are no install involved, but as far as development of the software is concerned, the methodologies can be applied for both of this. So now we have two different types of methodology. One is called waterfall, another is called agile. Now, waterfall is older method, meaning it has been in practice for almost, I don't know, maybe 20-30 years, and agile is more recent, probably in the last 10 years, which is around maybe 2001. So now waterfall is, it started with I think the manufacturing plants. So the way the manufacturing plant adopts this method, or let's say, let's take an example of car manufacturing, right? And it has the method looks like kind of like a waterfall. Now, before I get into the methodology, any type of design would involve few different steps. So one is sort of design. Okay, let me write all the steps first. So I have put the different steps involved in a product design. First, it starts with requirement, then design, then implementation, then verification, then maintenance. Now, depending on the type of product, there could be little different description associated with each of steps. But maybe let's talk about car manufacturing, or maybe the semiconductor manufacturing. I think these steps are quite clear what each of these steps is. So for waterfall methodology, the process is like this. First, you do the requirement. So once you are finished, then you start doing the design. And once you do the design, then you do implementation. And from implementation, verification, and the maintenance. So the key thing is that each of the steps would finish to 100% or at least close to that, and approved before the next step process appears. So that's sort of that basically means this, that water, as when the water falls on different steps, it covers one step at a time. So it falls this, and then it covers this step, and it falls to the next step. And when the next step it traverses the step, it falls to on the step. So that sort of captures the idea that one step has to finish before the next step starts, and this is called waterfall. Now, this works very well if a car, or for example semiconductor, because the requirements are quite clear, what you want to develop, and the processes are quite established. But this thing started having problem when we started trying to design software where the requirement of the software is not very clear, or even if it is clear, but it seems to be changing as we start development. So in that process, this sort of rigid methodology wasn't working. So like around 2000, what some of people came around 2001. A few people gathered probably in a ski area in Utah. They came up, they brainstormed for days and came up with a new methodology for having this sort of, especially in software world, and they named it agile. What this is really, it's a I-type methodology. This one, as you see, it's a waterfall model, was a sort of one step would not start before the other one finishes, But in the agile one, it's an iterative process. That means you do the requirement, but you don't wait till it completely clears. You just break the entire requirement, let's say, in sort of a lot of smaller chunks, and then you handle one chunk at a time. So what that means is that instead of, so let's say this is a requirement. So the methodology in the waterfall is, methodology in the agile is you break the task into smaller chunks and then rapidly finish one task and then start the other task, but also have an iterative approach. So as and when the tasks are finished, even though it's following the same sort of steps, but then it is an iterative approach, meaning you finish one stuff and then go to the next smaller task. But the thing, as a whole, the requirement process, even though it has, if you see a model, right, you break the task in small chunks, you finish, let's say, this part of the requirement, and then that part starts getting developed, and then the people in the requirement, they are what for the next part of the requirement chunk. Now the thing is that there is a feedback loop, meaning when people have started developing for the one chunk for which the requirement has been done, they can give the feedback to the requirement, so that if any changes happen, that of change could be incorporated in the requirement and they can be fed back. So that's sort of the iterative methodology. So it achieves two things. One is that it has a shorter time cycle. Instead of developing the entire product, let's say you finish maybe 3 to 6 months, you have a sometimes called a weekly plan. So that means you set a goal for the week, and then you do a small piece and then you release it. Now what that means from a end customer perspective is that you may not, for every week, you may not install a big feature and publish it to the customer, but basically you can do is that you can make a weekly release, and all the weekly release span over, let's say, 3 months, and on 3 months you make a quarterly release, and that's where you combine all the features and you basically create a document and let the customer know that, okay, we have installed a new particular feature. Now it sounds simple, probably in the practice it's a little bit more complicated, but you can think that the basic difference between agile and waterfall is that agile has a much shorter time cycle, and waterfall is it could be 3 months to 6 months. Agile method, and not all the times you want to make a big release out of agile method. Instead of because you cannot typically, if there is a good software product, you probably would not be able to finish a big software release within a week. So typically an agile cycles last to 1 to 2 weeks, and all this weekly releases over a period maybe 2 to 3 months combine together to make a big product feature release. So that's sort of the difference. And then the agile method is pretty much accepted or pretty much used in most of the software development which I have seen. It really works because in the software development, since things are changing rapidly, we are in a world where software is whenever you try to develop software, the requirements change quite often, and also people don't have clear idea what to develop. As you are developing, the design keeps changing from a specification point of view. Even from a software architecture point of view, you may start with either different one design, and you may as you're developing, you see some bottlenecks. It could be scalability, it could be different things. You change the design. So that means it is a iterative process. So each and every process to the point of verification, maintenance in software, probably if you're developing software, verification could be like a QA. So even the QA approach also could change. So that, I think that's I'm not sure if it's very clear to you, but I think if you can take away two main things out of this discussion. One is agile is a shorter time cycle, and agile is an iterative approach. Waterfall works when the requirements are very clear and defined, and waterfall model is longer time duration. Agile is shorter. With that, thank you, and in our next video we'll discuss probably some of the items like PRD, MRD, and that sort of things. Thank you.